Hey guys, Goon here. Welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to be reviewing the PvP aspects of Space Marine 2 and determining whether or not the game is worth paying the full price for. So without further ado, let's get started. The class variety in Space Marine 2 is wide and well thought out. Both squads have access to the same classes, of which there are 6. Each class has access to their own unique weapons and abilities. There are no unique characters, which in my opinion creates balance between the two opposing teams. On top of that, as a means of keeping balance, each squad can only have a maximum of 2 of each class during combat. So the PvP mode feels pretty well balanced by the developers. Additionally, the classes all have very different playstyles, which allows you to choose a class that works best for you and your playstyle. The map designs in the PvP mode are extremely limited and also a bit basic. Whilst they try to look and feel different with different themes and motifs, it's clear to me that the maps were conceived hastily, as they're often symmetrical in layout, very linear and lacking creativity. There are 3 different PvP modes, the first and most entertaining of which is called an Annihilation. Annihilation is a basic first to 50 deathmatch principle. With no objective other than killing your opponents, there's freedom to roam and try to tactically murder your enemies. However, there are areas in each map which are bottlenecked and create efficient kill zones for the opposing team, depending on which team you're on. As a result of this, most of the combat happens in these areas, and the rest of the map remains barren and unused. This is particularly true of the Annihilation game mode, as we will see later from the other PvP game modes. I have to admit that I found this mode to be my favourite of the 3 options, as the match can very easily swing from one side to another. You're not often rewarded for hiding and camping, but rather for pushing as one as a team. I like that when you're outnumbered there is very little chance for survival, as there is a certain level of realism in the movement speed of men in giant suits of armour. Speaking of giant suits of armour, another thing that this game has going for it is that it just looks cool. There's a very cool customization system which allows you to choose how your Space Marine is going to look. You can choose from the iconic colour schemes of the various Space Marine chapters, or you can create your own colour palette. Unfortunately though, the developers seem to have given more attention to the forces of the Imperium, while ignoring the mass customization opportunities that there are for the Chaos Space Marines. I would have liked to have seen more ways of customizing both sides, as the rewards that you receive from winning PvP matches are in fact new weapons and customization items. Overall, the Annihilation game mode is pretty addictive and very fun, and definitely a great addition to the game. So the next mode that we're talking about here is the Capture and Control game mode. The basic principle of this mode is that an area of the map is designated and both teams attempt to capture it. The zone has a total points value of about 100, and for every second that passes a point is allocated depending on who holds the zone. If no one is in the zone, then no team receives that point. If both teams are in the zone, then also no team receives that point. When the points available in the zone drop to 0, a new area of the map is designated. The first team to reach 200 points wins. I think this mode can also be fun, but I've found that the lack of communication with teammates has resulted in an overwhelming number of defeats. This mode is definitely the most team orientated, and you should be able to get a lot of fun out of it if you can get a good squad together who communicates and can push together as one. Because the biggest problem I've found is that once a player dies, they rush back to the zone to try and prevent the other team from getting more points, and as a result they just end up running in one at a time and getting slaughtered. And then when you move to the next zone, the other team is all together as usual because they've just been holding the previous zone, and they just push you and kill you. No problem. But otherwise, this is another good addition and creates a bit of variety within the game rather than just having a straight deathmatch and nothing more. Having said that though, if you do manage to get control of the zone and you actually do have a pretty solid team, this game could in theory be very fun for you and maybe not for the other team. My experience has been so far that the other team has predominantly smacked the crap out of me. However, if you were able to put together a good squad that had some idea of tactics, like if one player was using a bulwark and using the ability to regenerate armor, then I think that you might actually have a greater chance. Essentially what I'm showing here when I'm speaking, I'm just realizing it myself as I talk, that actually you can tactically come up with a better system than just trying to kill the enemy. You have to have enough available abilities and strategies in order to actually maintain control of the zone. So yeah, a little bit further play with this one, and I reckon it could be a centerpiece of the game. The last PvP mode is called Seas, and it's another classic game mode where you basically have to capture the 4 points on the map simultaneously to win. However, you do receive points for every time you capture a zone, and I believe you also get points for maintaining control of that zone also. If you reach 200 points, your team wins. I only played this mode a couple of times, but I thought initially it was more fun than capturing control, and I would hold to that belief still, as the issues I have with capturing control are not really a factor in Seas. Once you have captured a zone and you don't have to stay in the zone anymore, this means that you can protect the zone without the enemy knowing exactly where you are at all times. For example, you don't have to be standing within the perimeter of the zone in order to maintain it. There is a lot more movement around the map in this mode than the other two modes, as the objectives are spread out, and if you want to achieve them all, then you better get running around the map. This promotes less squad movement and more individual movement, because if you want to capture all four, you can't all be in the same place at the same time. So what do we think of the PvP modes overall in this game? To put it bluntly, they're fun. They have variety in them, the environments are not great, and Chaos Space Marines could be given far more customization options, but I'd say that the addition of the PvP games adds to the value of Space Marine 2 as a title overall. So, now the question was, is Space Marine 2 worth the money? I think it is worth it. The game has a short linear campaign, a PvE mode which is also quite linear, and it has 3 PvP modes. Without the PvP modes, I would say that the game is nowhere near justifying its price tag. Each aspect of this game individually would not justify the price tag, as there are games with more content in them in each of these specific areas. However, when bundled together, they offer a fairly comprehensive package that may in fact justify the price tag. So if you're thinking about buying Space Marine 2 but you're not quite sure if it's worth the money, I'd say go ahead and do it. That's just my opinion though.